I get asked all the time, what does a home care scheduling VA actually do all day? Not in theory, not on a job description. What actually happens hour by hour when a real scheduling VA is running your schedule? Let me walk you through exactly that. I'm going to take you from the moment the shift starts to the end of day recap. And by the end of this video, you'll have a clear picture of what it actually looks like to have someone else owning your schedule completely. I'm Jeff, CRO and co-founder of ClearDesk. Let's get into it. 7 o'clock in the morning, the VA logs in. Before you've had your first cup of coffee, your scheduling VA is already inside your system. They pull up the full day's schedule in AxisCare or WellSky, every shift, every caregiver, every client. They're looking for three things immediately: open shifts that still need to be filled, caregivers who have not confirmed their shift for the day, and anything that got flagged overnight that needs attention before the morning rush starts. Within the first 30 minutes, they've sent confirmation messages to every caregiver starting a shift that day, not a mass text. Individual confirmations with the client name, address, and start time. Because in home care, the details matter. A caregiver who shows up at the wrong address is just as bad as a caregiver who doesn't show up at all. By 7:30, the VA has a complete picture of the day, and she's already resolved 2 issues before the agency owner is even at their desk. 8 o'clock, a caregiver calls out. This is the moment that used to ruin agency owners' mornings. The phone rings. It's a caregiver. They're sick, they can't make it, their shift starts in 90 minutes. And they have a client who depends on them showing up. Here's what happens when your VA owns this. The caregiver calls the VA directly, not you. The VA updates the system immediately so the open shift is visible. They pull the coverage list, the ranked list of available qualified caregivers based on availability, proximity, and preferences. They start working down that list, text first, then call if no response within 10 minutes. They document every contact attempt. Once they fill the shift, they confirm with the replacement and update the schedule, and send a notification to the client family so the family knows who's coming and when. The whole thing is handled. You find out about it in the end of day recap if they cannot fill it after exhausting every option. That is the moment they escalate to you. Not at step 1, not at step 3, after the list is worked. So instead of being pulled into a scramble at 8 a.m., you get a single message that says, here's the situation, here's what I've already tried, here's what I need from you. That's a 5-minute conversation instead of a 2-hour crisis. 9 in the morning through noon. The schedule keeps moving. This block is where the ongoing operational work happens. New client intake comes in, a referral from a hospital discharge planner, a family who called yesterday. The VA enters the client information into the system, creates the care plan record, and flags it for clinical review if needed. Because this work involves protected health information, everything is handled in compliance with HIPAA, documentation stored correctly, client data shared only through appropriate channels. Caregiver availability gets updated. A caregiver texts in that they're available to pick up extra shifts next week. The VA logs it in the system so it shows up in future coverage searches. Another caregiver's certification expires in 2 weeks. The VA flags it before it becomes a compliance issue. EVV data gets reviewed. Any visit from yesterday that's showing as unverified gets followed up on. This is the kind of detail work that prevents billing problems downstream, because an EVV error that doesn't get caught today becomes a claim denial 2 weeks from now. Inbound calls and messages from caregivers come in throughout this window. Schedule questions, time off requests, complaints about a client situation. They keep the communication log updated so nothing falls through. Home care has constant turnover. If you're not recruiting every week, you're behind. This 2-hour block is where the VA keeps the pipeline moving, whether you're in a staffing crisis or not. They post open caregiver positions on job boards, so they screen the applications that came in overnight, filtering for experience, availability, and geographic fit. They pull credentials on the candidates who look right. They schedule interviews for the following week and send calendar invites. They send onboarding paperwork to the 2 new hires who just got offers. None of this requires the agency owner. You show up for the interview. Everything before that is handled 2 to 4 in the afternoon. Administrative follow-up. This is the work that keeps the business financially healthy. Billing authorizations that are pending get followed up on. Aging claims get flagged, schedule discrepancies, visits that show as completed in EVV but weren't entered correctly, hours that don't match the authorization, get caught and documented before end of day. Client records get updated. A client's care plan changed this week. That gets entered. A family member called with a new emergency contact that gets logged. This is detail work that seems minor until an auditor asks for documentation and you either have it or you don't. Everything that touches client records or billing data is handled with HIPAA compliance as a baseline, not as an afterthought. This is something we screen for specifically at ClearDesk because in home care, there is no room for ambiguity on this. 4 o'clock, the end of day recap. This is the management structure that makes the whole thing work. Here's what was completed today. Here's what was flagged and why. Here's what's pending for tomorrow. Here's anything that needs a decision from you. At the end of every shift, the VA sends a written recap to the agency owner. Here's what was completed today. The agency owner reads it in 5 minutes. They respond to the 1 or 2 things that actually need their input. That's the full management interaction for the day. No check-in calls, no status meetings, no wondering what's happening with the schedule. Just a clear, concise summary of the day and what needs attention. Less than 0.5% of applicants make it through our talent assurance protocol. Language testing, skills assessment, behavioral interviewing, background verification, environment auditing, and role-specific evaluation. By the time a ClearDesk VA starts with your agency, they already know AxisCare or WellSky. The reason a VA can handle all of this from day one, the callouts, the EVV, the recruiting, the billing follow-up, the documentation, is because of how we vet and train before placement. They already understand EVV compliance. They already know what a home care call-out situation looks like and how to handle it. They're not learning the job on your time. They're doing it. If you want to see what this looks like for your agency specifically, if you want to see what this looks like for your agency specifically, what a VA would own, what your day would actually look like, and what the onboarding timeline is, book a call with our team at the link in the description. Thanks for watching.